welcome to On Console, the video blog about my journey to becoming a certified NASA flight controller. Hey again, Jenny here. This episode will be on audio troubleshooting and voice recovery, which is segment 4, module 1 of the Cronus flight controller training. So before we jump into the module, let's go over some terms. So we've covered the ATUs before. Now they're responsible for voice and caution and warning tone enunciation, and these boxes are kind of like telephones between the crew as well as between the crew and the ground. Now there needs to be at least one ATU on in every module, except for Node 3, which requires both be on. When we're troubleshooting audio, we might get an indication called a PBIT. Now PBIT stands for Passive Built-in Test, and it's basically a test running constantly in the background for our audio boxes that will trip if something's gone wrong. Lastly, there's cycling. When I say cycling, it means turning off and then back on. So we can cycle our communication with the box, which would be cycling I/O, input-output, or we can do a power cycle, which means actually turning the box off and then back on. Now then, let's go talk about some audio troubleshooting. I've gone over it in bits and pieces before, but our audio system is structured like this. On top, we have our IAC, which is the one in charge of the overall audio system. The second level are our ABCs, which is audio bus couplers, and they're the ones that actually route all of our voice and our caution warning tones. Now, below the ABCs are our actual audio boxes. This can be ATUs, our AUI, which is our S-band audio channels, as well as our EVA audio channels, and then our RAUI, which is our KU-band audio channels and our Russian audio channels. Now we can get a PBIT on just about any part of the audio system. They come up on our displays, and when they do, we can run different tests to pull more information on what actually happened. The ABCs will PBIT if an IAC sees that there are multiple boxes underneath it that are indicating that something is wrong. It assumes that the something wrong is happening with the ABC above those boxes. Now there are some exceptions where the IAC isn't sure if it's the ABC or the box beneath it, and we call this a fault ambiguity, and the IAC will indicate this to us. At least the audio system is honest. Our ATUs can PBIT as well. If we're lucky, it won't impact our use of that ATU. If we're not, it might make that ATU unusable. Now, this isn't a problem for most of the modules because we have a couple in each one, except for Node 3 where both of them need to be on. So, an ATU PBIT can usually be solved by cycling I/O or power cycling. If the AUI or RAUI PBITs, it could mean a lot of different impacts to us if the problem does impact our audio. Now, for the AUI to PBIT, it could impact our EVA voice, which would be bad in the middle of an EVA. An AUI PBIT can also impact our S-band audio channels, which are two of our main lines of communication with the crew. For the RAUI to PBIT, it could impact our Russian audio channels, which would mean problems from Moscow communicating to the station, or for communication between the Russian segment and the US segment. A RAUI PBIT can also impact our KU-band audio channels, which are the other two main lines of communication we have with the crew. The AUI and RAUI PBITs are generally solved by cycling I/O and power cycling those boxes. An IAC PBIT is an entirely different story. Remember, the IAC is the one in charge of the overall audio system. So an IAC can PBIT for a couple of different errors, one of them including a loss of communication with our CNC MDM, which is our big king computer in charge. Now, this IAC PBIT will kick off Audio FITR, which, if you remember, stands for Fault Detection, Isolation, and Recovery, an automatic process the ISS executes to bring us something back. In this case, our Audio FITR will transition to our backup IAC in about 70 seconds, and this transition itself gives us the only caution message in the entire audio system, the transition to the backup IAC. Now, during this time in the transition, and whenever we don't have an IAC, we're down voice with the ISS, as well as caution and warning tone enunciation in the US segment. So generally, Audio FITR is pretty successful at bringing us back the backup IAC within one try. But if it's unsuccessful, it'll try 3 more times, so 4 times in total, and if it's unsuccessful overall, it'll give us the only warning message in the audio system, a loss of both of our IACs. I wanted to take a moment to answer a question I got on Twitter, and sorry it's taken me a little bit to get to this one. So the question was, does your engineering degree have a direct correlation to your job, or is it more the extreme learning aspect that helps? So yes, at least for me, I do think that there is a direct correlation between what I studied and what I'm studying now. Of course, Cronus is computers and communication, so my background in computer engineering has definitely helped me to understand the concepts a little bit easier and kind of solidified my understanding. That doesn't mean, though, that everyone in Cronus is a computer engineer or an electrical engineer, because at the same time, I think that the divisions that train flight controllers at NASA are looking to hire people that have that engineering mind, that technical, analytical, logical mind, because at the end of the day, they can teach you what you need to know, what they want you to know to sit on console, but it depends on your ability to learn it, to retain it, and then to execute it. So I do think it takes a little bit of both. Thanks for your question. Well, that's all for this episode. Be sure to check out my other sites and pages and take a look at the first or previous episodes if you haven't already. Well, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next week and for many more as we get one step closer to being on console. Thanks, and see you next time!